Well, as bass anglers, we know that Ned rigs catch a lot of fish. That super small plastic is extremely effective, and with a Ned rig, when it's standing up off the bottom with an Elastec type lure, man, you can put a lot of fish in the boat quickly. Well, that same concept, that same idea for that super finesse, that small plastic, applies to Texas rigs as well. But a lot of anglers don't use small plastics on their Texas rigs. And here are three that just work really well for me. Number one is a small craw. We know that soft plastic craws are excellent Texas rig lures. Well, if you've spent much time flipping over rocks, maybe this was a kid and you're out there and you're flipping rocks over, catching crawdads, looking for them. Yeah, we all got excited when we caught that great big crawdad, right? But how many times did you see those little ones right there, you know, scurrying around on the bottom, you know, working their way through the silt, hiding down in the cracks of those rocks? There are lots of small crawdads out there. And when conditions are tough, when we're not getting bit with our normal sized lures, our traditional sized lures, putting on that small craw can make just a tremendous difference. And if you want to throw it on a Ned rig, works really great there as well. Number two is along the same lines as a craw, and that is that tiny little creature bait. Creature baits are excellent craw imitators, and I like to use these small little creature baits even if you're going from, let's say, a 4-inch to a 3-inch. It doesn't seem like that big a difference to us. But as far as the fish on a day when they just don't want to commit, that little bit shorter creature bait can make all the difference between a fish that watches it and then kind of turns away, and then the fish that's, all right, we're going to go ahead and commit with it. So small creature baits work very well. And the other thing that we need to keep in mind before we get into bait number three is using these tiny Texas rigs. Of course, we're going to have smaller hooks to match the plastic up better, but we want to make sure that we're using as light of a weight as possible, and it still is, you know, fairly easy to cast. I've done this both with bait cast gear and then spinning gear. If I'm pitching around to more isolated targets, then I'm going to use some of these tiny Texas rigs with my bait cast equipment. For me personally, I am much more accurate with a bait caster. But if I'm out more in open water or covering some lengths of a shoreline, paralleling shoreline, well, that's when I'm probably going to switch it over to spinning gear. So choose whichever one works well for you, but try to keep that bait as tiny as possible, as small as possible, but yet where you can still go ahead and make an acceptable distance or acceptable length of a cast. The next one that I like, the Texas rig, is your traditional TRD. There is something about that little piece of plastic that bass just hit. Who knows, maybe it looks like a crawdad without pinchers on it, right? Studies have shown that crawdads without their little pinchers are more apt to get bit. But in the marketing world of the bass fishing industry, when companies have tried to sell craws without the pinchers, they don't sell. Consumers don't buy them off of the shelves. So maybe that's where this TRD really fits that bill nicely, because bass just annihilate it. And besides your Ned rig, it can work really well on those small Texas rigs as well. And the part that I really like about it is it's so slender that it just slides through so many different situations, so many types of bottom cover, just pulls right through it with little to no effort, rarely gets hung up, and it doesn't take a lot of commotion for those bass to pick up on it. I like to equate it to, let's say I come to your house and I move something in your living room. When you come into that living room, odds are you know that something's not right, something has been moved. Well, bass, we're in their living room, right? When we are down there and have our lures down there, we are in their house, and they can pick up that smallest change, that smallest commotion from a pretty good distance, whether they see it or whether they notice some other fish. Like right here, we've got some catfish that are feeding on the bottom and all kinds of bass just pulled into there. They're good at figuring out what's not right in their environment. And speaking of small plastics and Ned rigs, hey, if you want to talk about a rig or see a rig that gives us a new way to fish that Ned style bait, go ahead and check this one out right here, and make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.